And there we go. Hello, hello, hello. My name is LeAnn Lyon, and this is the Lead with LeAnn show, where we talk to amazing people. So it's good to be back. I took a couple weeks off for anybody that follows regularly. Of course, we have so many available podcasts. Go and find us. We're on Audible, on Win Win Women. Find the channel for Win Win Women. But we're on Audible, we're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on all the places you go to your podcasts. And you can find me in the Win Win Women channel as well. And so it is so good to be back. It's been a minute. Enjoyed a little bit of time off and really, truly couldn't be more grateful. But welcome, visionaries. Welcome, change makers. And welcome to Lead with LeAnn, where we navigate the waters. It is summer in Minnesota of business with heart and purpose, airing every week at 2 p.m. Pacific time exclusively on winwinwomen.tv. Please come on over and join us. I am LeAnn Lyon, your Chief Joy Officer, here to empower you with strategies, insights, and a splash of fun. Each week on Lead with LeAnn, you'll join me as we delve into the inspiring stories of established leaders and innovative entrepreneurs, and we'll uncover just what it takes to build a brand from scratch, lead with authority and grace, and turn business aspirations into tangible success. So anchor down, set your sails, drop your phone. Oh, wait, I just did that. And let's dive into the art of joyful leadership. Get ready to be inspired because your journey to business brilliance starts right now. And my guest today is a mompreneur, author, ghostwriter, and writing guide with a superpower for, wait for it, hearing between the lines. She guides, this isn't a word I use, but it's okay, badass and brilliant, loving and soulful people in writing their incredible personal stories of grit. That's a word I use. Hope and triumph, meant to inspire their audiences, transform the masses, and change the world. She is the CEO and co-founder of The Right Place, WRITE Place, Right Time, an award-winning author of Dear Universe, I Get It Now, Letters on the Art and Journey of Being Brave and Being Me, and the co-author of Do Not Write a Book Until You Read This One. Alyssa, are you there?
I sure am.
There she is. Come forward. Let's see your beautiful face. There
Here
she is.
I am. Hello, world. Hello,
And I forgot to
fans of
mention,
LeAnn.
I forgot to mention, she has a gorgeous white cat, and she was at my summit in May. It was
Yes,
great to have you there.
it was awesome. Had so much fun presenting at the summit.
You did.
Yeah, I did.
It's
I really
really,
did.
really, really good. I'm actually sitting here thinking, how did we meet?
Yeah. I'm going to go with LinkedIn.
I'm going to go
I
with
think
LinkedIn
that
too.
we connected on LinkedIn and then jumped on a call from there, and the rest is
Somebody maybe
history.
made an introduction. I'm thinking maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. It could have been. Or maybe you had a VA who was looking for guests that and looking through profiles. Is your VA do that?
Well, I have software that does that. Oh,
Oh, okay. Well, that counts.
but we look through what we come up with and we make our selections very carefully and judiciously.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. Somewhere in that realm of things, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I was thinking because it's unusual that somebody's on my summit before I meet them for this, but I'm so grateful to have you here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
and what's new?
Gosh, what's new? Well, I mean, I think I was sharing with you before we kind of came on live. There's a lot of movement right now in business. There's tons of books kind of going off my plate and new books coming onto my plate. So there's a lot of traffic there. But beyond that, I've learned a lot about myself in the last few weeks from intuitives and mediums. And so there's some new interesting developments in the kind of personal development space that I'm trying to wrap my head around and figure out how to use in my business.
Very interesting. You did not share that. That sounds very interesting.
Yeah.
Last week I read 3 books around somewhat similar self-development. Do you know Jamie Kern Lima, her book Worthy?
Oh, I've heard of that one.
Yeah,
But I haven't read that one yet. Is it great?
really great.
Yeah.
So her original book was called Believe It, and it was about her journey through entrepreneurship. Awesome.
Hmm.
Worthy is more about, just the pervasive feeling that men and women
Yeah.
can really have in business and life. And I really enjoyed it. But then 2 other authors that I met in Dallas in June, I went down to a Association of Network Marketing Professionals event. And 2 of these women were on stage. I ended up getting both of their books. One is Donna Johnson, and she wrote the book My Mentor Walks on Water, which
Mm.
is very introspective, asks a lot of great questions, um, really good thoughts about who's in your inner circle.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could talk about that for a while.
Mhm.
And then the other is Jenny Potter, and she wrote a book called Self Sabotage No More.
Oh, that one everybody probably needs,
Probably.
right?
And
And
it's all,
probably is a really good companion set with Worthy, because
well,
when we
that's what I'm
don't
saying.
feel
All
worthy,
3.
right?
I'm
Yeah.
like reading all 3 saying, okay, she said, and she said the same thing.
Yeah.
Like all in their own way. The self-sabotage book was only 114 pages. I read it in one day.
Yep.
Now I didn't do everything that it said I could do.
Okay.
That's tomorrow.
That's tomorrow.
Oh,
That's
wait,
that's a tomorrow thing.
was that a sabotage thing? That wait,
I'll do it tomorrow. And
yeah,
then never do it. Maybe, unless you're really intending on doing it tomorrow and you will actually do it tomorrow, right? I find it difficult with books that are actionable to be able to implement like while you're reading, because then it's like, especially for those of us who just consume literature, it would be difficult for us to ever feel like we got through a book if we stopped to do the exercise or the action item every single time. And
yeah,
I also feel like, you know, I often want to know what's the whole picture here before I start to bite off the smaller piece.
yeah,
Like, how do all these concepts relate? Something that is in chapter 1 might relate to something in chapter 11. And I want to know how the pieces fit together before I go kind of like doing exercises and changing, my mindset or perspective on something.
yeah.
Would you
So
like to jump
spoiler alert. Well, not really. The self-sabotage book is very much in order.
in?
And I did bookmark only 1 page, maybe 2. That was very specific. Here's your steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And
Yeah,
it was all nice and neat on the bottom of right-hand page. I mean, it was just, there. And then
there it is.
beyond that, she's like, and once you have those things taken care of, now you can look on to, and I agree with you. It's great to have the big picture. And now I can more confidently go through
Yeah,
steps.
right.
Yeah. My mentor walks on water also. I found it interesting. I'm on part 3 of both Worthy and My Mentor Walks on Water. I'm starting part 3 on both of those books at the same time.
It'd be interesting to see what might be aligned or like running on parallel tracks,
Oh,
given
there's
that
a
you said,
lot.
yeah,
Yeah.
naturally come to part 3 in both books.
And very different people, very different experiences.
Yeah.
Um, and where they're coming from.
Hmm.
I just really appreciate both of them. But
Yeah.
yeah. You are a ghostwriter and you work with authors and you write. So
Hmm.
have you had that happen where suddenly you're doing multiple books that are along the same track?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because it's not like I'm putting out a call that says I'm only taking books on conscious or intentional leadership right now. But inevitably we'll be working with multiple people who all seem to be trending kind of in the same area. Again, different experiences, coming to the work from different places, upbringing, education, I mean, life experience, how they identify. I mean, they couldn't be more unique individuals. And yet, feeling like, wait a minute, didn't I just read something like that somewhere else? And then realizing that it's like 2 different manuscripts, but these 2 people are so like minded in what they're saying that they're nearly saying the exact same thing, even though they're in two different places. So that can be a little bit tricky because you're like, okay, I gotta remember who am I working on right now, and not suggesting to someone else like, oh, you could take it in this direction because I just read that over here in the other manuscript from the other client, right? Keeping the integrity of each person's work separate. Um, but yeah, I mean, it can be hard.
I bet.
Exciting because you're like, oh, lots of people are thinking the same way, which is really great. And when you're on board with it and it feels different than what culture is saying about a certain topic now, like leadership, right? You're like, yes, I'm here for that. But as a service provider, like it can be tricky when they're similar. I almost prefer it when they're like in totally different lanes because then there's way less likelihood of any kind of confusion or screwing up.
I am positive sitting here right now that if I were to ever step into your shoes, I would have to say, here are my options, one per category only. There's no way I would never be able to keep it separate,
Yeah, that's hard.
especially as much as I like to talk about ideas.
Yeah. Yeah.
It would just never happen. I mean, I just recapped 3 books. By the way, I also put a post together on Facebook to introduce all 3 authors to each other.
Oh, I love it. That's great. That's my favorite thing is like once I feel like we're through a lot of the manuscript development and each got their voices, they have their content nailed down, they know what they're trying to say. We're out of the woods of kind of like early drafts where ideas are still kind of forming and they're still putting, their stakes in the ground. I'll do the introduction and be like, hey, I think that the two of you would have a lot to talk about and a lot in common. Like, so I'm making this introduction for you. But I feel like you have to be at a certain point in the manuscript's development for that to be a good exchange and not have people in each other's ears offering up material that then changes and shifts the way that they see their own work.
Yeah,
Um, because a lot of my authors are first time authors. They don't consider themselves writers. Those who are working on nonfiction kind of business books or thought leadership or brand books, whatever term you want to use, they want this book to have them be seen as the credible guide or expert in what they're talking about.
yeah,
Um, and yet, if they start to read a lot of other people's stuff, even stuff that was published 10 years ago or published more recently, all these other voices get in their head and they have a difficult time figuring out what do they want to say about this topic, what did they want to bring to the conversation, because they are so well read. They want the validation, they want the study, they want the concept that perfectly pairs, and other people's material is good to help elevate their point, but they need to figure out what they want to say and draw their own line in the sand first, and too many other voices can really muddy the waters.
oh, 100%. I mean, the saying, "There's no new things under the sun,"
Yeah,
isn't a new concept.
right.
That was written by King Solomon. That was a
Yeah,
long time ago.
yeah.
Even then, they said there was no new things under the sun. Now, truly, internet. I
There were
mean,
some things.
there are some things that are new since, King Solomon, but yeah, that's a yeah, I can get that. I understand that concept. I think it would be hard. I think it would be a challenge. In fact, I know as much as I promote people like John Maxwell and different speakers, because I do talk about a lot of other people's works,
Mhm.
um, it would be hard for me to, I think, to write a book because I would feel exactly like that. Like this is just a whole bunch of other people's stuff that I'm just kicking out of my mouth or through my hand.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of authors will say, I know I've heard this or I've heard it multiple places from multiple people. Who do I cite? Like,
Mhm.
three of these big names in the field all say something similar. This is my spin on it. So how do I appropriately credit, these other people and still feel like I'm saying something to add to the conversation. I'm not just repeating, what I've been told or what I've learned. And I think that that's really where it comes down to what are you adding to the conversation? Or what spin are you putting on the conversation that's different from what you've learned or picked up on from somebody else's work? And then being able to just summarize, like, these three names all have similar takes, but they all call them something different. Here's my take, right? And then you name those people, you give a really succinct description of where this is coming from, but you bring your reader back to this is how I'm adding to what I've learned. This is how I'm seeing it, or my experiences have suggested. You bring it back to the center, because there are no new concepts really or life experiences. It's really about how you present them and what voice you use and the way that you share or the way that you tell a story or you educate on a concept. So you can have unique perspectives and unique voice. That's really where you have to work
Yeah.
it.
Well, and to that point, I mean, back to John Maxwell, I mean, one thing that he came across when he started writing is all the books in the world at that time were about management. And his big thing was it's not about managing people, it's about leading people and shifting that concept over to leadership. In fact,
Yeah.
earlier today, I interviewed a woman who will be on my show in October. And that's her thing. She wants to also interview and talk about leadership. But that wasn't the conversation 30 years ago,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and it shifted the whole thing. Well, now Stephen Covey has a book out called Trust and Inspire. And he's saying, that's a different form of leadership than, I can't remember the other term he used, but it was basically very top down,
Yeah.
basically micromanagement type of leadership. So,
Mhm.
so the conversations can change, and I think culture changes as well. You said something that intrigued me. You said, especially in the context of leadership today, or how it's being talked about today. Was that a conscious thing?
Well, I mean, I think what I seem to be seeing with the clientele that I have, and a lot of them tend to be coaches or consultants, and they're in professional development spaces, right? Where they're helping CEOs or executives or other entrepreneurs brush up on a range of leadership skills. And I feel like, intentional leadership, conscious leadership, strengths-based leadership, situational leadership. These are all things that I'm hearing
Okay.
a lot of right now from clients, or also seeing different spaces like on LinkedIn talk about it. I feel like when we went through the great, resignation, right? Like masses of people leaving employers and companies that they had been with for a really long period of time in a lot of instances,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of shook our culture to say we've been doing it wrong for a really long time. And while we had books, we had John Maxwell and we had Simon Sinek, and we had thought leaders who were talking about doing leadership better. It was like there were only some people who were paying attention. And now I feel like we're in a place where more people are paying attention, more people are acknowledging that we've gotten it wrong, more people are wanting to do something about it and to change and shift old models, right? And so it's like almost like a renaissance for leadership right now, where I think we're returning to some of those greats, those thought leadership greats that already existed, but we're also seeing a number of people come out working on their own spin on some of these concepts because it's a hot topic, it's relevant right now, right? And this is a time for those consultants and coaches, right, to really shine, because finally, the world has kind of caught up with where we should be. I feel it's similar to DEI books right now,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's not like they never existed. It's not like we never needed them. We've always needed them. They've always existed. But I think that some political and cultural events here in the United States in the last few years
Mm-hmm.
have made it possible for now the DEI books to actually get more attention, have them be more well received, more people to say, yes, we need more of this, and to be open to them. It's almost like these books that happened before were ahead of their time or something.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're finding that there's more space, more attention for them that people are willing to give them. And I hope that that continues in both of those spaces to blossom, because we're doing a lot of things wrong. And books are our best low hanging fruit to make a little bit of change because they're low time and money investment, right?
And to
They're
be clear for
great.
anybody listening, DEI stands for diversity, equity, inclusion, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Not everybody's familiar with that.
Yeah. No, I'm glad that you mentioned that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, and the world is in a very different place than it's been
Yeah.
and where we're at and all that for sure. And yet, as much as we've been talking about this and both of us have some passion around it, this isn't the only type of book that you do. So you
Right.
happen to have several that might be working on that, but what are examples of what's the most unusual book, if I may, that you've worked on?
Well, I would say the most unusual book that I'm currently working on is a woman who's actually writing a novel. She's writing fiction, but it's largely based off of real life events. And that's not usually a space that I play in. And predominantly, I would say 99.9%, because she's the other 0.1%. 99.9% of the time, I'm working in nonfiction solely, either the business books and thought leadership, personal development stuff, or memoir. Um, but the reason I took on this particular project was she was the right type of client in terms of, motivated, passionate. She had a clear vision, and she had a really interesting story, like a personal story that she wanted to try to figure out how to shape and tell in a fictional way, because alongside her own story that she felt was really good fodder for a book, this other character had come to mind that she was really in love with. It was fully kind of cooked, in her imagination. And she wanted to do something interesting where this new character that she came up with and the character that was based on her life were going on parallel tracks throughout the novel.
Oh,
So it alternates chapters between the point of view and the perspective, like which character we are hearing from and learning about. And that's been really fun and really interesting to work with. Um, it requires a little more creativity, a little more plotting, a little more organization around character development and setting, and where does the tension play in, and how do we connect these two character storylines, when they're generations apart. So it's been a nice kind of, like, just a change of pace, like, and really fun.
I want to read that
Yeah, pretty
already.
excited about this one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I love those types of back and forth. And then as soon as you said generations apart, I'm like, done. Gotta have
yeah,
it.
yep,
That sounds so
yep,
much fun.
yeah.
I know many people who would like it. So is it available by Christmas?
You know what? I don't know what our timeline is going to be on that one at
Okay.
this point. A lot of life stuff has happened, and so it keeps keeping the schedule
Sure.
off track. But
Yeah.
when it's ready, that's when I'll definitely be like just shouting,
Okay.
from the
Good.
rooftops, as long as she's willing for me to do that. But most clients are. Most
I
clients are
was
like,
gonna
yes,
say,
please promote my book. Um, it's obviously the exception, right, is in the ghostwriting space, when the client does not necessarily want it to be known that I was their ghostwriter, or they don't want to say that they worked with me at all.
sure.
Then it's, a little harder to, gloat about those books. But what I have found, and this is a good tip for anybody listening that wants to work with the ghostwriter, or wants to pay credit to a ghostwriter without acknowledging that they're a ghostwriter, is to just call them something else. Say that they were your coach, your editor, your beta reader, your accountability partner. Like, you can literally call them anything else that acknowledges their participation in your writing journey, so that they can at least talk about the fact that they worked on the book, which is helpful for them and their business and their credibility, but without giving away any of your confidentiality or,
Yeah. Well, that's
that kind of
excellent.
thing. Yeah,
And you don't exclusively do ghostwriting. Sometimes you are truly the coach in their
correct.
writing.
Yep.
And you are more the advisor. So it kind of
Yeah.
goes both directions in what you do.
Yeah.
Wow, fascinating. Very,
Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah.
And I know, the thought has gone around in real estate, let's say, people say, "Oh, you have to write a book. If you're in real estate, you have to write a book so that you have your book to prove that you're a serious realtor." And I'm like, how does that work? Um, how to sell how? Wait, we what?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was interesting, and I didn't ever want to write a book about selling houses, but I think a lot of people do think about writing a book, but let's back up a little bit more because usually I love talking about your business. It's fascinating and we'll probably get back to it. But you you know, you got here somehow. How did you get here?
Yeah, how did I get here? Oh my gosh, how long do we have?
Yeah.
I would say that the Cliff Notes version is I was always meant to be here. It just took me a really long time to figure it out. And when I say that, I mean, I knew as a little girl that writing was in my future. That was my calling. And it's hard when you're 5 to really explain what you know in your core, right? Because you're 5 and culturally, we think of children as being cute, but not necessarily as being all knowing or, because we don't have the experience yet when we're little, right?
Mm.
So we think that we have a dream, but a lot of the times that dream is really looked at as fantasy, something that's, okay at the time, but not going to be very realistic later on down the road. And I fell into that trap myself. I kind of lost the inner knowing and started to kind of believe the voices around me that were saying writing was not practical or realistic. You couldn't make money off of that. Um, of course, this was also with a very narrowed idea that to be a writer was to basically sit in a dingy, unlit apartment in my rags, trying to pen the great American novel, not making any money, right? Um, there was not a lot of exploration or discussion about what types of jobs or opportunities there were to write and make money. Journalism was tossed around a little bit, but that was about
By
it.
whom?
And then, yeah.
It's tossed around by whom? By you?
Um,
By others?
English teachers,
Okay.
parents, grandparents, even every now and then there was like, well, you could think about journalism. But I didn't see myself as like a newspaper writer. Like
Mhm.
that just didn't feel like it was it. Uh, so by the time I went to pick a college degree and go get my undergraduate degree, I decided, okay, I'll double major and I'll get a creative writing degree and I'll get this other degree, which I chose psychology, and I'll go down this mental health track and that will be my breadwinner. And then like I'll write on the side. Um, and that was believable until I got into my master's program for marriage and family therapy and was very unhappy. I was not concentrating in class. I was not paying attention to what was going on. Writing was like literally like just tapping me on the shoulder. Like, you picked the wrong degree. Like, you should not have gone this direction. We told you at the end of last year when you got your bachelor's that you should be looking at an MFA program. um it was just a very loud presence, nudging me along at that point. And so I did this really scary thing and I switched master's programs after a year, in one, went after the master's of fine arts program. Eventually moved back to Vermont, was in a relationship, couldn't find anything in Vermont, my home state. This is where I moved back to, and I couldn't find anything that had a direct transfer of that master's of fine arts degree into something that paid, for me to use it. So I was in nonprofit for a bit. Then I finally found something that would work. There was a small academic publishing outfit in Burlington, Vermont. It was the North American office to a UK based academic publisher. This
Hmm.
like needle in a haystack kind of thing. I never knew that they existed when I was growing up here, but they had been here the whole time. And they happened to have an opening and I got it. And I was like, I made it. I was like so thrilled that I had made it. Like, I was going to go work at a publishing company and my MFA degree wasn't for nothing. And I had 3 very happy years there before they were acquired and we were all let go.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, I guess that's not it. And it was devastating. And I was pregnant at the time. And all of a sudden, I'm on maternity leave, searching for a new job, mourning the one that I just lost, trying to figure out like what I'm going to do next. And I ended up working at a law firm, and then that didn't last. And then I moved over to a software firm, and that wasn't going so well either. And in the midst of that, you know, a series of unfortunate personal life events also happened. And so, my marriage fell apart. I miscarried my second child. Um, and I was just like, okay, this is not what life is supposed to look like. This is not what my 30s were supposed to be or adulthood was supposed to be. Like, how did I felt like I was like a fall from grace. Like, how did I have this ambitious, motivated kind of persistence, get those degrees, and then a handful of years later, it's like nothing is working out, everything's falling apart, and I'm a mom, and now I've got to like raise a human. Um, it was a lot, but also the exact thing that I needed. And this is kind of where the universe comes into play, and also the title of that award-winning memoir that I ended up going on to write, which is basically that the universe was like, we've been trying to get your attention for years and you weren't paying attention. So we have completely stripped you of all the things. There is nowhere else that you can go but up from here.
Mhm.
So figure it out. This is your big chance. Like, you're at the bottom, there's nowhere else, there's nothing else to lose. Like, so now's the time to like figure it out. Take the risk or take the leap, whatever it is, because what do you have to lose? So um in that kind of place in life that felt a little bit scary and dark and not what it was supposed to be, it was also this really beautiful moment of transformation and like a phoenix rising from the ashes kind of thing. Um, because I was paying attention. Like, my eyes were wide open at that point, and the right people, the right books, the right podcasts, everything kind of lined up, and they were all pointing one direction, and that was to go out on my own. And someone in there introduced me to a woman who helped women start businesses from their homes. And she said to me, did you know that you could start a whole business and get paid for writing? And my mind was blown. Like, I had gone and gotten a master's in fine arts in creative writing, and not a single teacher in that program had ever said, like, you can make a business from writing. They gave me two paths to follow. Neither one of them were good, and they both involved making no money. Um, and this woman, all these years later, and one conversation with me, and she was like, yeah, totally. You can write this, you can write that, you can do it this way, you can do it that way. And I was like, all right, sold. I'm doing it. Like,
Yeah.
and that was in the fall of 2018. So I'm going on 6 years this November, and I haven't looked back. Business has evolved a lot, but I haven't looked back.
I think there's so much that you've shared in the last few minutes that I thank you for. And one of them is just the takeaway that so many times in college, people don't think about this. You go to college, you learn from professors who went to college and then became college professors.
Yeah, yeah.
They oftentimes do not have business experience in the very things that they're teaching.
Mhm.
And I mean, educators to a degree, at least they're in education, educating educators, maybe. My daughter went to hospitality college. She was learning from culinary people, but oftentimes not necessarily owners of businesses, owners of restaurants. And that's what she wanted to learn some of that. And so it's interesting when you really think and take a look at what the college professors have as their backgrounds. It's not what you think. So, one other thing that you said, and by the way, you just hit mute by accident, perhaps, or your cat stepped on the the space key. You can unmute, but oh no, you can't. Hold on 1 second. Let me unmute you. There you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, but another thing that you said is you talked about the 5-year-old, and usually what I ask my guests is around that 8 or 9-year-old age, where did you feel a calling? Because in my I know you say universe, in my world it's God. I just say that we, in the Bible it actually says that he knew us before we were knitted in our mother's wombs, that there was a purpose planted in us, interestingly enough, not for our sakes, but for his sake. And that's kind of our mission, our goal is to carry that out theoretically. Now we have the complete flexibility to say yes or no. I will,
Right.
I won't. Totally, that's free will. We can totally say, "Nope, you had that cool idea. I'm going over here." And
Yeah.
many, many, many people do, and you did for for a bit. You
Yeah.
got distracted by the world, if you will, distracted by the professors, if you will, the teachers, the naysayers, the knowers. Oh, the
Mhm.
N-O-ers, not the K-N-O-W-E-R-S. And but it was, I think that that 5-year-old that had that intuitive knowing of who you really were.
Yeah. Yeah. And, she and I have made peace.
Good.
Somewhere along the way, I think, I don't remember what kind of coaching relationship I was in, but the exercise was to write a letter to your younger self.
Mm.
And it was an apology letter. You're like, sorry, I veered off course. Sorry, I forgot. Sorry, I left you hanging, I remember how powerful writing that letter was and also very healing
Yeah.
because I think somewhere in the period of time where I was looking back going, how did I get here? I felt like a failure, because marriage had fallen apart and I had a toddler now that I was only seeing half the time. I had to move back in with my parents for a period, which is not what I was aspiring to in my
No,
30s.
I bet.
I was in an unhappy, unsatisfying job that had nothing to do with this degree that I had worked really hard for. And I thought, man, I have lost my way. Like, this is not what little me had really hoped for or dreamt up or thought of.
Yeah.
Yet at the same time, when I went out on my own, it was like just within the first week of being full time, because I was straddling my 9 to 5 job and my business for about 6 months, working both, and saved up for 2 months of living expenses during that time. And then I walked out. I literally only had 2 months and I cut ties. But as soon as I was not showing up for that 9 to 5 and I was just in my own business full time, it was like just homecoming. Like, this is where I was supposed to be. This is exactly where I was supposed to be. Like, I made it. I got here. Like, not that challenges were all over or that life was going to be perfect or that, eventually this dream job wouldn't some days just feel like a job. There was going to be things that were going to eventually lose their, honeymoon feeling. But just feeling so at home within myself. And that's how I knew it was right. That as scary as it was, that as unpopular or uncommon, for my circle of people, you know, it was right for me. It was the right time. It was the right move. And I'm not meant for listening to somebody else's rules and 9 to 5s and corporate cultures, and I'm just not. And I had to get there and own it.
But you, as I mentioned, you were on my summit, so you heard me say this more than once, and it's all over the website. 41% of Americans dream of starting and owning their own business. Do you remember the statistic on how many are
Oh
actually
my gosh.
self-employed? It's
I
a single
don't.
digit.
One?
It's a single digit. It's 9.
Uh,
That leaves 32%, a full third of Americans that think about and don't step into entrepreneurship or have, but there's so much. I mean, I get it. If we all knows the statistics on how many businesses fail, they don't make it 5 years. I was in a business that was 26 years old and then didn't last. So, I mean, there's lots of reasons. And now, I mean, I could dive into this for another hour with you, I'm sure, on AI
yeah,
and its impact on all sorts of industries. I interviewed with a wonderful lady who's going to be on my show in September. And she's all in, I mean, all in on branding and logo and all the stuff that, I mean, the conversation with her in September is going to be fascinating because where are we going to be at with AI between
yeah,
now and then? I
right.
mean, I almost want to do a before and after with her because AI is shifting so much of what we're doing and how we're seeing things as well.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's a crazy world. I've also had downtime, mostly since we last met. And in that time too, it's sometimes in that allowing period.
yeah,
It's crazy how much more I've actually made not working in the last 2 months. I mean, I obviously worked, but the more opportunities I had to work with the types of people I want to work with. And it
Mhm.
came out of the blue
Yeah. Yeah.
without even my pursuing it.
Yep.
It's that letting instead of pursuing. And
I think
it's,
that's been the hardest lesson in the 6 years that I've been in entrepreneurship. That and then trusting your own inner voice. And actually, quite frankly, they go hand in hand for me. Um, I feel like there's a lot of noise. I mean, there's a lot of noise everywhere, no matter where you go, but especially in the entrepreneurial space, I feel like there's a lot of noise because there's this coach or this consultant or this person wanting to sell you this formula to get more leads, that formula to win more sales, this formula for getting your marketing done more, faster and more organically, this one over here to make you a better speaker overnight. It's overwhelming, a lot of like, well, you should be here and you should monetize your YouTube channel and you should, start a podcast and you should do Google ads. And I just feel like all of those things probably have a time and place, but they might not all be for you specifically. And trying to figure out what is yours to take, like which idea makes sense for you and your business, not just take it because they've done a really great job marketing that it will work, right? Can be really, really challenging. But it also comes down to your willingness to release the idea that you have to do it the same as everyone else and allowing for your inner voice to be louder than all the noise around you.
yeah,
And so these
100%.
things just like
Whereas,
folding together.
and then I couldn't help it when you were talking a moment ago, I was thinking, and you know what Tony Robbins calls all that, right?
Oh gosh, I don't follow him. What does he say?
Shooting all over yourself.
I like it. Yes, that's right. We don't need to be doing that.
We
Shitting
don't
all
need
over
to be
ourselves.
shooting all over ourselves. Absolutely. Say no, just say no to should.
Say no to should. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, well, that is super fun. I can't believe we have flown through this time. Normally, at least I invite anybody on our live stream to come on over. I'm going to invite you now because we're still going to be here for a little bit. I'm going to stop the recording soon. However, but if you're listening on live stream and you have a question for Alyssa or for me, you can come on over to winwinwomen.tv. This is a live program right now. So if you see us on live stream, we're live. If you're listening to the recording or watching on YouTube or wherever, or winwinwomen.tv, this show does happen every single week at 2 p.m. Pacific Central Time. That's 4 p.m. That's my time. And we're here interviewing amazing, intelligent, and successful entrepreneurs like Alyssa. It's so much fun having you here. Where can people find you online if they want more information? And I know you had a gift that you mentioned as well, and it has something to do with the memoir.
It sure does. So to answer your first question, so they can definitely head over to the website. So the rightplacerightTime.com. So WRITE in the first place and then RIGHT in the second. So the rightplacerightTime.com. They can jump on the email list and they can find all the information in all the places that they can come hang out. But if they're on social, they can come follow the Facebook business page. They can go over to YouTube. I have a channel there, or they can connect with me on LinkedIn. It's probably the channel that I hang out on the most. LinkedIn is my social of choice, which I know is unpopular because there's still a lot of people who are very Facebook heavy or Instagram or even TikTok now, but I'm a LinkedIn fan. And my free gift is the 5-step writing guide to starting and finishing a memoir. So this is a great bird's eye view of the steps along the path from blank page to publication. So if you're completely new to writing a book, you have no idea what to expect, you don't know where you are on the journey, this is your guide.
Hmm. Hmm. So this conversation has led me through a whole bunch of stuff in my head, just to let you know,
Okay.
because again, I have always my whole life known I was going to write a book. Haven't written it. I do have 40 plus journals. Maybe
Me
I
too.
have the makings for a memoir.
Yeah. I have no doubt. I mean, everybody has a story in them. It's a matter of cultivating it and curating it and figuring out what exactly it is. I think a lot of times in the memoir space, people confuse their entire life's journey as being their story.
Yeah.
And it's not as simple as that when it comes to memoir. Memoir is more of a curation, like think of an art gallery. An art gallery is individually curated pieces that might have to be, related by a certain tone or theme or style. A memoir is a curation of life experience that all have to do with a particular lesson or piece of wisdom that one has learned through those experiences. So it's not just like I was born on a Tuesday and I'm going to tell you every single event that's ever happened to me that I find to be really important. It's, 5 or 6 things that might have happened within a couple of years or over the course of your lifetime that all relate to a particular journey you've been on to learn a particular truth, right? That has become like the thing your life has been about up until this point. So for you, if I were to say, if you were to say to me, like, next week, I'm taking a whole week off and I'm just going to read through these journals, my challenge to you would be bring a post-it notepad and a pen with you
Uh-huh.
and start writing down any patterns or trends that you start to notice that
Mhm.
continually come up in your journals.
Wow.
Over 40 journals, like you'll probably be surprised that something that happened back at in when you were 8, echoes something that you then happened to you 10 or 15 years later, and they all have to do with the same thing. And that's probably a clue that your story is about that.
And isn't it interesting that that's the question I ask everybody? Where were you when you were 8 or 9? What did you play? What did you imagine? What did you think about? What was your obsession at that age? Yours is writing. Um, and how did that carry out into your present day? And most of the time when I'm speaking with successful entrepreneurs, which is who I always talk to, um, they're in a space where they are doing what that child dreamt
Yeah.
about. Almost always. Almost always. And you know what? I am too.
It's beautiful
Because
when we get there.
because my 8 or 9-year-old was on stages speaking.
Yeah.
My front window was an audience. There was a wetland out the window. And every one of those reeds, all of those beautiful flowing reeds out in the wetland, that was my audience.
I love that.
And here I am, and I love this. And yeah, yeah. Well, you may have just finally tipped it over.
Do it.
I may have found because I'm like, I'm not an authority. I'm not Oprah, although I love what she does and how she interviews people. Quite frankly, I've never followed her. Um, I know she's amazing. This is all I really know about her. And people say because Jamie Kern Lima, who I've just been reading, talks about how much she wanted to start a show where she interviews people who are
Yeah.
successful entrepreneurs, and now she's doing it. And I'm thinking, wow, that's what I do. But we're all different. We're all unique in what we're after.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing that I would encourage you and anybody else who sits in the position that you do, thinking about telling your life story, but feeling like you don't have authority or whatever. Well, the one thing that you do have the most authority over is your life experience and what you've been through
Yeah.
and what only you know that you can share from that place, right? And that's all the authority you need. Memoir gets this rap for being like the book for celebrities or the book for high
Mm,
profile figures or whatever it is, and that is all well and good, I suppose, but truly I feel like the people that we connect with the most are the everyday people because
mm,
they're living the same experiences that we are. We're on the same level with them. That's not to say that there aren't celebrities and politicians who have really been through some serious muck and that we can't relate to them from those places of adversity and challenge, but the memoir genre or category has has more business, I think, being for the regular people,
mm.
and our normal people living extraordinary lives than the extraordinary people that we all think are worth following and our time and attention because, the tabloids say that they are. Um, so I would encourage anybody like to find their story, write their story, and feel the power of standing fully in your own experience and truth,
Yeah.
light and dark, whatever it is that you've been through.
Yeah. And I agree. One thing I know is we all go through stuff. You've clearly been through some stuff. I've clearly been through some stuff. And I have had people ask me, "LeAnn, how did you get through that stuff?" And that could be part of what that memoir could be about, for sure.
Yep.
How do you get through some of the devastation? And because, quite frankly, my thought in the early part of it was like, how does anybody get through this? And where is my mentor?
Yeah.
Where is my mentor to know how to do this thing I'm going through?
Yep.
And not having it. And I'm reading a book, a memoir. Ironically, I don't read a lot of memoirs. I am reading one that was given to me by a friend, called From Scratch. And it is a celebrity, but she's not like Eddie Murphy's celebrity. She's well known, I'm sure, in her circles, but I hadn't heard of her. And the book is about a very touching, very emotional journey that she goes through after losing her husband.
Hmm.
And so that's what you're saying is
Yeah.
resonating with exactly how she's very carefully curated this story.
Yeah.
And the memories are around her husband being a chef. So there's a lot of food. Yeah, I get really hungry reading this book. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Memoir it's a beautiful, beautiful genre, but it's definitely not for the faint of heart as the writer or the reader.
Yeah.
It's a genre that's specifically about life's hard knocks. I mean, that's what memoirs are made of.
And as we're pushing up on the end of this hour, I have one burning question that I think a lot of people might have about, well, but if I write a memoir, I'm going to sell like 4 copies. Who's going to read it? I
Yeah.
mean, how do you even promote a memoir? It just seems like a whole different concept from promoting, the 12-week year, you know.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, we could have a whole episode just on that topic alone, but the Cliff Notes version is the way is if you're, let's say, a business owner who's like, you have a choice. You're going to write a book and you either can write the brand book, the thought leadership book that promotes your methodology, your framework, whatever, or you can write your personal life story, which you feel more compelled to share because you find it more interesting, but it doesn't directly produce an ROI or something. I want to encourage you to think about how people buy from people that they know, like, and trust.
Yeah.
And the only way that people can get to know you, like you, and trust you is if you're vulnerable and you share something about yourself.
Mm,
When you put your entire life story out into a book and then can help the reader and your ideal audience understand how that life experience is translated to why you are the way you are, or how you work the way that you work, or why you're good at what you do, or how you landed in the job that you now have, whatever it is. When you
mhm.
can identify that connection of dots for your reader and your audience, then you're doing the same thing that the other book would do. Except the other book is like, let me share with you all of the things that I'm going to teach you to get the transformation that you want. The other one is like, you want to work with me because I'm a darn good human,
Yeah.
right? It's just about the position and the messaging.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And a great way to say thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here today. I
Well,
greatly
thank you so
appreciate it.
much.
And, for everybody interested again, if you can see this video, it has it right at the bottom of her screen. It says the right place, comma, right time, where the first right is WRITE and the second is RIGHT. And again, head over to um, her website as well and pick up that beautiful gift. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And on behalf of Alyssa and myself, we'll conclude this with thank you. Thanks for joining me and us on this journey to unleash your joyful business potential and maybe your book.
Yeah.
Remember that leadership is a voyage we take together. So keep shining and aligning with your purpose. Come back next and every week at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, exclusively on winwinwomen.tv for our next inspiring episode. So until next time, on behalf of Alyssa and myself, this is LeAnn, your Chief Joy Officer, signing off. Keep leading with heart, and I'll catch you on the next wave of success. Farewell, and keep spreading joy.